with our Tally. Okay, so let's now go to Tally and say, okay, how do we do all these things? While we discussed all these things, okay, we need to understand how do we actually do this on our Tally. Okay, so let's move on to Tally. Okay. Okay, so is everyone able to see my screen, Tally, which is opened? Okay, so as we go to Tally, okay, this is the same data that we are using continuously. Okay, we'll continue with the same data. Okay, so what I will do is, okay, how do you first enable to work on Tally? Okay, so that is what we will look at. How do you enable to work on Tally, work on cost centers in Tally? So on gateway of Tally, go to F11 features, accounting features. In accounting features, you have an option called cost or profit center management, right? So here you just enable maintain cost centers. Just enable this option. So once when you enable this option on your gateway of Tally, under accounts information menu, you get a new menu called cost centers. Okay, so where you could create. So I'm just explaining once more. On gateway of Tally, click on F11 accounting features, and you have a section called cost or profit center management. There you have the second option called maintain cost centers. Enable, make that as yes, save, Control A for accepting that. Once when you enable on your gateway of Tally, under accounts information, you get a new menu called cost centers. So here in the cost centers, you could create a cost center. So like example, okay, let me just take you through some of the examples. Okay, so first let us go through the examples to understand. So hope everyone is able to see my Excel sheet on my screen. Okay, is Excel sheet visible? Okay, good. So in this example, what we are taking is we need to create cost centers. So I'm just taking for understanding purpose, we will say we require 3 cost centers. One has food items, that is one line of business. That is basically the line of businesses. Food items is one line of business. Sports goods is one line of business. And electronic goods is one line of business. Okay. So these are all the lines of business, different teams or different lines of business we have in our organization. So we want to work on this to check whether how we could configure this to Tally. Okay, so let's come back to Tally. I'm going to gateway of Tally. In gateway of Tally, accounts information, cost center, create. I'm just creating the same things, whatever I have in Excel. Food items, or food, let me say food business, sports business, electronic business. Okay, food business, sports business, electronic business. So I've just created 3 cost centers. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, once when I create the cost centers, the next thing is, by default in Tally, cost center gets enabled for all my expenses and incomes. All the ledgers which participate in my P&L account, that is the profit and loss account, will automatically get enabled with cost centers. So let me just go and check that in the masters. So I'm just going to accounts info, ledgers. I'm going to alteration screen of the existing masters to check whether cost centers are enabled or not. Okay, so Anand the traders, it is not enabled. If you could look at here, cost center is no, because Anand traders is my sundry debtors, which is my asset. They are not my expense or income. Okay, so let me just go to electricity and water. This is my expense ledger. In electricity and water, automatically cost center applicable is enabled. You could see it on the screen, right? So for all the incomes and expenditures which participate in your profit and loss account, example, foreign exchange gain or loss, which is participating as part of your profit and loss account, is enabled with cost center. This is by default. Once when you enable the cost center, so example, I could just go to hide the link, it's not enabled, cost center is not enabled. But if you just go to any of the income, say like import purchases, it is enabled. So by default in Tally, all your P&L items, P&L ledgers gets enabled with cost centers, right? So now let me just go and do some transactions. Okay, so let me just go and do one expense entry. So let me just go to JV. I'm booking the expenses. Okay, I'm just debiting electricity and water. Say example 3,000 rupees. I'm just changing the date to 1st July. Okay, say 2,800 rupees. Once when I update this 2,800, now automatically a new screen is opened which is asking for cost center allocation of this 2,800. So to which business, against which business we want to account this expenditure is what we need to give. So how do we do this? So the allocation, we need to have an allocation, or you could all allocate everything to one line of business, or you could allocate proportionately. Okay, or you could allocate based on the floor area occupied by each of the departments. Okay, so now it is left to the organization how it has to allocate. So like example, I want to allocate equally. Okay, so example, I have 2,700. Okay, I want to allocate equally. So what I'm going to do is, I'll say for electronic business I have 900 rupees. For food business I have 900 rupees allocation, and for sports business I'm allocating 900 rupees. So the same 2,700 rupees has been allocated to different lines of business, right? So now the credit goes to Bescom. Bescom is not available here. Okay, so we need to create Bescom as my supplier. Okay, so 2,700 rupees that I'm accounting, the bill number. Okay, within 10 days I need to make this payment. expense accounted. Right? You got this? So now I'm just going back to the same transaction just to show you. Okay, so we are accounting one expenditure, electricity and water expenses. When you account an expenditure, because it is part of your P&L account, cost center has got automatically enabled, and it will ask for what is the amount that needs to be allocated. So you could allocate the whole amount to one specific cost center, or you could allocate it to a multiple cost centers by giving the breakup of the values. Okay, so this is how you make an entry. Srinivas, directly to electricity expenses, can we make the payment? Yes, you could do the payment without any journal. Yes, it is possible. You could go directly to the payment entry and make a payment. It's still possible, and you could have an allocation of allocation of cost center. That could be done. So let us just see how to do that. So like example, I want to make one payment directly. Okay, so I'm paying through HDFC Bank. So now I'm paying for fuel and vehicle maintenance. This is my expenditure, indirect expenses. So I'm just creating one new ledger. So the cost center is enabled. So I spent 5,000 rupees. So here again the allocation is asking, you could say to which cost center you want to allocate. Say example, I want to allocate this whole amount to the sports cost center, sports business. We could do that. It's still possible. Okay, so let me just now take you to some of the income accounting. Okay, so like example, I'm making a sale, F8. So I'm making a sale to Royal Agencies. Okay, so what am I selling? So I need to go to inventory transactions. Okay, sales account. What am I selling? So like example, I'm selling Annapurna Atta 5 kg pack, one number at 40 rupees per kg, 40 rupees. Okay, so how I need to do this is, since I might have multiple cost centers allocation, because I might be selling different products in the same invoice. So do one thing, go to configuration and disable using of common ledgers. Okay, now once when you take the party, then automatically it is asking for the item. You are selecting what item you are selling. Then it will ask for the sales account. So this is the ledger allocation. Once when you allocate the ledgers, then it will ask for your cost center allocation. Since this is a food product, I'm taking its food business. Okay, I'm also selling one example cricket bat. Okay, so one number cricket bat that I'm selling for 800 rupees. This also goes to sales account, but in the cost center allocation, this will go to sports business. Okay, then I'm also selling Sony TV 42-inch, one number at 30,000 rupees. Now this goes to my sales account, and The line of business is electronics business. And this is my credit days, how much of days of credit that I am giving to them, being sales updated or sales entry made, whatever the remarks that you want to give. So now if you look at this transaction, this is the transactions that we made where we have also done the cost center allocation. Okay, Rajesh, what needs to be disabled is common ledger allocation needs to be disabled, because in one specific transaction you might have to do a multi cost center allocation. Okay, so I'll just show you. By default what Tally will have is, okay, you need not give sales account at one shot at every item. Okay, if you don't have cost center, then you could default it will be as use common ledger for item allocation. That will be yes, make that as no. Okay, so now if you look at this transaction very carefully, so let me just come to display daybook. This is the transaction, sales transaction we have made. Okay, so if you look at this transaction and go to the detailed, see here, you could see the allocations. Annapurna Atta, it is going to sales account, and cost center allocation, it is food business. Cricket bat, it is going to sales account, but cost center allocation is sports business. Sony TV, it's going to your sales account, the cost center allocation is electronic business. So accordingly, all your line of business is getting allocated in the same transaction. Right? Is this clear? Any questions on this before we move forward? Okay, so let's do one thing now. Let us go and look at the report, how the reportings can be done. Okay, so to look at the cost center report, go to display. On your gateway of Tally, come to display, statement of accounts, cost center, and cost center summary. When you go to cost center summary, this is what the summary it's giving for each line of business. What is the debit value, what is the credit value, what is the net closing value? Means debit means your expenditures, credit means your revenues, balance is debit minus credit or credit minus debit, whatever the balance. Okay, so now example, if I look at in electronic business, I have earned 30,000 rupees, but I have spent 900 rupees. In sports business, I have earned 40 rupees, but I have spent 900 rupees. In sports business, I have earned 800 rupees, but I have spent 5,900 rupees. See, overall, I would have made 23,100 rupee net. But if you really look at my sports business and food business is not profitable. In this particular example, this is not profitable. Right? Jyoti, can you show entry of two lines of business in two different locations? Two different locations. So you want to make cost centers as locations? Two lines of business in, okay, we'll come to that. Jyoti, just hold on, we'll come to that. How can it come? How can it comes? Aprameya Vishwanath. Vishwanath, nange nimma question I am not able to understand. Okay, so Jyoti will revert back to you as we move forward. Okay, there are a lot of examples that we will revert back. Vishwanath, if you could just help us to understand your queries. Nan gartaglilla. I didn't understand your question. If you could explain it on chat properly. Okay, I'll come back to you, Vishwanath. I'm not able to understand. I'll come back to you. Okay, so let's move on. That beautification of both debit and credit column in column. Okay. So let me try to explain if I have understood your question right. So you want to know what is this debit value and what is this credit value. See, this debit value are all the expenses that you have incurred against this line of business. So against electronic business, you have expenditure is 900 rupees, but your income is 30,000, because we have just done only 2 transactions for sample purpose. Okay, for your food business, okay, your expenditure is 900, but you have earned only 40 rupees. For your sports business, you have 5,900 of expenditure, while your revenue is only 800. So overall, for your whole organization, you have made 30,000 rupees sale, 30,840 sale, but your expenditure is only 7,700. So overall, your business is profitable. But if you look from the line of business, food business and sports business is not giving that kind of revenue. So that is what this report is indicating. Okay. So let's do one thing. Let's do some 2-3 more transaction and see this report, which will be able to understand in much more detailed way. Okay, so let me just go to transaction and account some expenditures. To have the debit values, let us just account some expenditures. So I'm just taking some of the accounts. Okay, so example, I'm just taking office rent. So I need to pay rent of the office, 25,000 rupees I need to pay for the month of July. So now how do I allocate this? So generally the allocation of rent there is one question from some user saying, sir, purchase of material value is not involved in cost. I don't know who is this user. Could you just give your name, please? Suresh. Suresh, yes, the cost of purchase is also part of your profit center, because that's an expenditure. Even in the purchase, you need to allocate cost centers. Okay, so let's come back. So we are accounting office rent and we need to allocate cost centers. So how the cost centers are allocated for office rent? Generally, it is based on the floor area that is occupied. So assume that I have 3 lines of business. Okay, each business is occupying 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 space. Then it will be allocation will also be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Or if sports business is occupying more space, say like example, sports business, because I have a lot of items to be stored. Okay, so then sports business might be occupying 40% of the space. Okay, then electronics business might be occupying 30% of the space. Food business might be occupying only 20% of the space. So if that is the case, then we need to allocate it accordingly. Okay, so let me just say, okay, so sports business is occupying the highest space over here. So out of 25,000, 15,000 goes to sports business. Okay, for electronic business, 6,000 is going to electronic business, and balance is going to food business, and the credit is going to landlord. New reference, I'm just taking this. Expenses accounted. Similarly, I'm accounting one more expenditure, salaries and wages. So I'm paying salaries for the month of June. Say like example, I'm saying I'm paying salary of 35,000 rupees. Now again, I can do the allocation. So to which employee I'm paying salary? So under which line of business this employee is? So we will have all those breakups. Then based on the breakup, okay, accordingly we will allocate. So like example, I'm just allocating 10,000 for electronic business, 8,000 for food business, and balance for sports business. I could do this allocation. So salaries payable, I need to create one account. Salaries payable under current liabilities. Okay. I've accounted the salaries. Nisha is asking, can we define in advance a proportionate allocation of expenses over cost center? See, advances are paid to the suppliers, generally your sundry creditors, and they are not your expenses, right? Advance is not an expense. Advance is a balance sheet item. Okay, so currently we are discussing on expenditure and income. Okay, then what you are asking? If you are not asking for advance, then what is your question? I'm not able to understand your question. Okay, so you are saying there is a percentage of allocation. Say example, you are saying 20% has to go to sports business, 30% has to go to food business, 50% has to go to electronic business. Is that the question you have? Rather than allocating amount, you want to allocate percentage. Is my understanding correct? Yes. Okay, we'll come back to that. Okay, we'll tell you how to do that. Yes, it's possible. We'll come back to that. We'll tell you how to do it. Okay, so let me just account few more things. Okay, so salaries and wages we had. Okay, so let me take sales and marketing expenses. Okay, we have spent some 9,000 rupees on sales and marketing expenses. Again, on electronic, okay, we have spent the most cost on electronics. So almost 8,000 rupees we have spent on electronics. Okay, on food business we have spent only 300 rupees, and on sports business we have spent 700 rupees. Okay, so Chaitra advertising under sundry creditors. So I'm just accounting this bill. Okay. So there was a question from one of the participants. Can you? So I had a question saying that Suresh is asking, can we do this as part of the purchase entry? So can you just show how to do it in the purchase entry? Okay. So let's just go to purchase entry. Okay. So now in the purchase, so I'm just purchasing from my distributor. Okay. So example, fridge, 2 numbers, 24,000 rupees, purchase local. Okay. So here you are not getting the cost center allocation, right? So this is where you had the issue. See, generally what happens in most of the purchases, say example, in this example, I purchase electronic goods from my distributor. I purchase food products from my distributor who is selling food products. I purchase sports material from my sports distributor. So in one purchase invoice, it's very unlikely that we will have different line of business items, because different line of business items we would have purchased from a different distributors. Okay. So this will come as part of pre-cost center allocation that I'll come back to you. Okay. When we take this point of pre-cost center allocation. Okay. Or the other way of doing is do it as a voucher entry. So like example, Vikram distributors. Okay. I have 24,000 rupees. Okay. And purchase local item. I have just selected the item. Now it will ask for the cost center. Allocate it at this level, electronic business. Is this clear? Hope this will help you to account at the purchase level. Okay, so now like this, we are just accounting all the transactions. Okay, so let me just go and make one more sale transaction. Sale transaction not required. We have already had one sale transaction. Okay, so while you start accounting this, now you could just go to your report. If we book at invoice level, cost center is not going to happen. Yes, then you need to use pre-cost center allocation during the entry. I told I'll come back to you on this later. We'll explain that. How to do if you are doing as a invoice mode in purchase entry. Okay, so go to display, statement of accounts, cost center, summary breakup. So now the numbers are changing. You have a debit value of 48,900 for electronic business, while your revenue is only 30,000. Okay, so your revenues are less because you have made only one sale transaction. Okay, for the sample purpose. Okay, so this is how you see the cost center reports, consolidated report. You could also go to individual cost center if you want to look at the breakup. You could say cost center breakup. I want to see only for electronic business. So here it will show you group wise, and you could explode and see if there are multiple ledgers under the group. So my sales, I have got 30,000 credit. For purchases, I have spent 24,000. This is for the cost center electronic business. And I have expenses. Electricity and water 900, office rent 6,000, salaries and wages 10,000, and sales and marketing 8,000. Okay, so if you want to change the cost centers, okay, you could go and change the cost center. So you could select whichever the cost center that you want. So accordingly, you will get the report for this specific cost center. Clear? the next report that you will get is you want ledger wise reporting. So this is the other dimension of the report. So I want to see for a particular ledger to which are all the cost center the allocations have happened. So there might be a question from your management saying, okay, I want to know salaries and wages to which are all the cost center it has got accounted. So you could go to salaries and wages account, take this report and say, okay, to which are all the cost centers the allocations have happened. Clear on this? Example, you could go to sales account and see whichever the account you want to go, you could just go and see there. Or you could also go to a group. Say like example, I want to see for all indirect expenses. So this is totally all the ledgers which is forming under indirect expenses is getting listed out over here. Any questions on this before we move to next? Is it clear? Okay, so fine. So let us just go back to our presentation and see what are all the topics that we covered and what are all the topics that is left out. Okay. So enabling cost center F11, we looked at it. Enabling creating cost centers, masters, yes, we did that. Yeah, so Suresh, there is a question from Suresh. If we take GST purchase, then we can take only basic value of materials under cost. Yes, GST is typically your balance sheet item. It is not a P&L item. So you need to take only the basic cost. Okay, so we covered all these three things. Are you all clear on this? Next, we went to vouchers with cost center allocation, single cost center allocation, multi cost center allocation, all these things that we looked at. And we also looked at the reports. Okay. Now let us move to sub cost centers. So now what is going to happen is while you have a cost center, under cost center, if you have more cost centers, so how to do that allocation and how could you view the reports? Okay. So let us go back to our Excel sheet. Okay, so this is the first example we looked at. We had 3 lines of business: food business, sports business, and electronic business. Okay, so we did some allocations for that. Now, let me say under each line of business, food business, sports business, and electronic business, I have my sales working on this, who are driving this business. I want to track salesman wise profitability report. That is what my management asks on a regular basis. So how do I maintain that in Tally? So we'll take that as an example and we will see how to do this. Okay, so let me do one thing. Okay, let me just create some of the salesmen under each of this line of business. So under food, I have Suresh, Sudarshan, and Prasad, who are under food business. Under sports business, I have Manish, Manju, and Navyakala. Under electronic business, I have Ramesh, Ganesh, and Rama. So these are all my salespeople. Now I want to track salesman wise what is the expenditure that's happening and what is the revenue that these people are generating. right? So for that, what we need to do is first we need to go to Tally and first create them as our cost centers. So just go to accounts info, cost centers, either single create or multi create. Okay, so electronic business. Who are all the people who are under electronic business? Ramesh, Ganesh and Rama. Ramesh, Ganesh, Rama. Create them. Okay, under food business, I have Suresh, Sudarshan and Prasad. Okay, then under sports business, I have Manish, Manju, Navyakala. So I've just created these salesmen as sub cost center under the existing cost center. So go to display. If you want to look at how you have created list of accounts and click on cost centers. So this is what we have created. Under electronic goods, I have Ganesh, Rama, Ramesh. Under food business, I have Prasad, Sudarshan, Suresh. Sorry, all these three people have got created under Suresh. I'm sorry. Okay, so this is not under Suresh, this is under sports business. Manju should come under sports business. Navya Kala should come under sports business. Okay, so this is how we need to create the sub cost centers. Clear on this? How to create the sub cost centers? Okay. So now we will go and make few transactions. So like example, let me just go and do few purchase and few expenses and sales. So first let us make few sale entries. Now one more thing that you need to remember. Generally when you are making a sale entry, okay, so based on different organizations will have different kinds of handling the sale. So there are two kinds of sale. One is over the counter, where customers comes to your counter in a retail environment where you make a sale, or if you are into B2B, where you go to customers and sell. Okay, so now the example what we are looking at is at a B2B environment where I have my salespeople. They are responsible to sell these products in a B2B environment. Okay, so I'm just going and making 2-3 sales entries. Okay, so one is, let me just create a new customer. Anand Agencies under Bangalore. They are in Bangalore. Okay, so I'm selling example sports items. Hockey's cricket bat, 10 numbers at 800 rupees. Sales. Now I need to allocate to the right salesman. Okay, so Manish is basically under my sports business. So I'm just saying Manish is doing the sale. Okay, then hockey stick. Again, I'm selling 10 numbers hockey stick at 1200 rupees. So this is going to sales and Manish. Okay, so I'm also doing one more sale. Okay, to the same party. Let me just take to same party, Anand Agencies. Okay, I'm just changing the date. This is on 12th. cricket bat, 10 numbers or 20 numbers, 16,000 rupees. Now this has been sold by Navya Kala. So the salesperson is Navya Kala over here. Hockey sticks, Navya Kala. Okay, so I'm having one more sale just to complete this. Okay, I'm taking for the same party, cricket bat, 5 numbers at 1,000 rupees. This is sold by Manju. Hockey stick, 4 numbers, 2,000 rupees, which is sold by Manju. Okay. So I've just done sale entry for the sports business. I've not done for others. So let me just look at the reports also. Before looking at the report, I'll also make few of the expenditure entries. Okay, so like example, I'm just directly going to payment. Okay, cash payment. Okay, fuel and vehicle maintenance. Okay, 800 rupees. I have paid to Manish for vehicle fuel. Okay. Similarly, I have paid on I'm just creating one more ledger. Okay, I'm just calling it as food allowance. Okay, so I'm paying 400 rupees to Manju on food allowance. I'm paying 500 rupees to Navya Kala on food allowance. Example. Okay, so I've just made few expenditure entries also. Vijay Kumar is asking a question. Suppose I am purchasing fuel for vehicle purpose. So how do I maintain in cost center? Fuel for vehicle purpose. I didn't understand the question. If you could just explain me in detail what is the nature of the expenditure that you're doing. Fuel for vehicle purpose. I'm not very clear. Okay. Please explain, Vijay Kumar, what is your question? I'm not able to understand. Okay, so now let us do one thing. Let us go and look at the report. How does this report look like? Again, go to display, statement of accounts, cost center, cost categories summary. So now if you look at under each you have breakups, but if you come to sports, under sports there is a sports cost category and there is individual employees also. So like example, if you look at Manish, 20,000 is the revenue that he has earned and the expenditure that he has done is 800 rupees. Okay, Manju, you have income and expenditure. Navya Kala, you have income and the expenditure that is being done. Okay. Now, whenever there is an expenditure, you could go and tag it to the right employee. Okay. And if there are some expenditures where you cannot tag it to employee but to a particular line of business. Okay, so like example, I'll just show you one more example. Okay, we have given vehicle for repair. Okay, there is a vehicle which is carrying the goods, which for delivery vehicle. Okay, that has gone on repair, and we have spent 8,000 rupees on vehicle repair. We cannot allocate it to an individual employee, salesperson, because that is not the salesperson expense. That is the vehicle maintenance expense. Then we need to allocate that directly to sports business, not to individual employees. Is that clear? Okay. So let's do one more thing. Now let us just go and look at the report. Say example, if I want to look at the report of only one particular employee, Manish. So it will automatically show me what is the sales, what is the expenditure that's done. This is exactly what the management wants to know if they want to evaluate any line of business, how it's performing, or if they want to evaluate any particular sales team or anything that they need to do. Is that clear? One more thing that we could also do is basically, now I'm just looking at the report of Manish. Now I want to compare Manish with one more salesperson. Okay, and see how the performance is getting done. Suresh, your question is put sale entry expenditure individual salesperson so that we can get an actual profit. That is what exactly I've done. I made 3 different sale entry for 3 different individuals. And expenditure also I have booked separately. So that is what you are looking at the report. Okay, so this is what you are looking at the Manish report. Now you want to see Manish versus Manju versus Navyakala, how they are performing. Okay, it is very simple. You need to just click on add new column. Okay, and take one more resource and add one more column. Okay, and take one more resource. So you have first column Manish revenue versus expenditure. On the second column you have Manju's revenue versus expenditure. On the third column you have Navyakala's revenue versus expenditure. So this is one of the comparisons report that you want to do. So these are all the information that is required internally for business analysis. These are all called MIS reports. These are not the statutory reports, these are all MIS reports, but these are all very, very important. This is what your management will ask you for. Right? Okay. Let's move on. If there are any questions, please put it on chat box, or we could move on. Are there any questions, or could we continue? Okay, so let's continue then. So the next on the topic is individual salesperson salary also under cost effective. Yes, whenever you are booking salary, you have to book it under that particular employee. That is when you could actually look at the reports. Someone, I don't know who is the user, is asking, can you see your video again later? Who is this? Can you tell your name, please? Hardik. Hardik, you are from which organization? Tata Steel. Hardik, see, what we could do is, as we are doing every day, okay, we are not recording this session because there are more than 70, 80 people who are logging in on a daily basis. Because of the bandwidth issue, we are not recording this session. Okay, what we could do is we could share the sample data, what we are working, and the presentation, what we have done. So you could go through that and understand. Okay, for that you need to just send an email to us so that we'll be able to share, so that we are doing it on a daily basis from day one. That's fine. Okay, we'll tell you how to what are all the things that you need to send us in the mail. Okay, so let's go to the next topic. Okay, so one of the question that Jyoti was asking, I think the Jyoti was asking, or the Nisha was asking, is can we do a percentage allocation rather than going and allocating value? Can we do a percentage allocation? Right? So for that, there is one option in Tally. I will just show it to you. If you just go to the F11 features under cost center allocation, okay, so there is an option where you could define, use pre-cost center allocation during the transaction. Predefined cost center allocation during the transaction. Enable this. Okay, so currently I'll just show you, then we'll come to this class and look at this class. So one simple way of doing a transaction is, once when you enable this and go to your transaction entry. Okay, go to your transaction entry. Say like example, I'm just going to journal entry. Okay, now in this journal entry itself, I could allocate any particular cost center. So like example, I'm making, so typically what happens at the end of the period, say like at the end of the week, Manish is one of my sales resource. He's submitting his expense claim. Okay, so in that expense claim, there is a traveling allowance. Okay, there is fuel charges. There are some food expenses. Okay, there is some vehicle breakdown that he had put from his pocket, and he's reclaiming all these things. So now he's giving us one expense statement. Now when I'm accounting this expense statement, it is very simple that I need to just go to the transaction and account this expense statement. So the all expenditure is just allocated to only one employee at that particular point of time. So to do that, it is very simple. Okay, I'm just going to payment. So I'm making a payment to him, right? Or you could even account the journal. So let me just directly go to payment. So let me assume that one of my sales resource has given me a reimbursement statement. So we are reimbursing him. So I'm just going and allocating that directly to that specific employee. So I'm paying, example, through cash. So I'm paying for fuel and vehicle maintenance because he has spent some 500 rupees on fuel and vehicle maintenance, and he's claiming that. Okay, so he is also claiming food allowance where he has given the bills and everything, 400 rupees. Okay, then he has also paid some other expenditures like so he has done some expenditure. So he has also got his mobile recharged. Okay, so mobile, he has done the recharge and he has spent 700 rupees on that. So what I've done is I've just directly gone and allocated it to Manish. So all the expenditure that I'm doing, I need not go to individual ledgers and do the allocation. So it's automatically taking. So all this 1600, all this 1600, I'm just reimbursing him and it has got auto allocated to only one person. So that could also be done. Okay, so for that, I'm just explaining once again, you need to go to features, enable pre-cost center allocation in transaction. So once when you enable this, you could also do the purchase entry on the invoice mode by using this. I'll tell you why this is important. Generally, I was just talking earlier. Okay, when we make a purchase, we purchase from most of the time from the distributors. Okay, so I have a different distributor for food. I have a different distributor for sports material. I have a different distributor for my electronic materials, right? So most of the time the purchase happens for a particular line of business. So here, when I'm making a purchase entry, I could just go and allocate. Say example, this I'm allocating to electronic business because I'm buying electronic goods from Vikram distributor. Okay. So I'm just buying mobile phone. Sorry, 10 number at 25,000 rupees. Purchase local. I'm also buying Samsung 1 ton, 3 numbers, local purchases. Now, even though I'm entering in an invoice mode, I could do an allocation of cost centers. Is that clear? I think there were few questions from a few of the participants. How to do when we are doing it on invoicing mode. Okay, so this is one way of doing things. The other way of doing is in an expenditure or in a transaction, I have multiple cost centers to be allocated, but it has to be on a percentage basis. Say like the best example is rent, office rent. So office rent has to be allocated to all the 3 departments: food business, electronic business, and my sports business. Okay, and it is based on the floor area that is occupied. So initially you would have agreed what is the percentage of expenditure that needs to be allocated. So like example, you might say 30, 30, 25 and 45, 30%, 25% and 45%. Okay, so if you have agreed on those things, again you could go to your F11 features, accounting features, and use the predefined cost center for allocation and create a class. Say example, I'll say floor area. So in this case, electronics is taking 25% of the floor area. Food business is taking 35% of the floor area. And sports business is taking 40% of the floor area. This is the percentage of allocations that I am supposed to do. So you could have any number of different percentages with different cost center allocations. So save this. Now example, I'm just making one expenditure allocation for my rent or my electricity and water. Okay, so example, I'm just taking 25th of July. Okay, so I'm passing one journal entry. Okay, in the cost center, one second. So when I'm doing this, in the cost center allocation, I'm just giving it as floor area. That is what I had defined earlier. So when I give it as floor area and do a transaction, office rent 30,000 rupees, landlord 30,000 rupees, a new invoice. Now it is not asking you to give any percentage or any value for the breakup. It is just accounting. Okay, now if you just go back to the screen, so there is an auto allocation that has happened. 7,500, 10,500 and 12,000. Because you have given the floor area, and that floor area you have defined the percentages. Is this clear? So this is the simple way of allocating based on the percentage. Okay, so let me just look at the question. Sahu from Kolkata. Sir, we are in construction business. We required the details of vehicle, machinery wise, diesel consumption, repair, maintenance and spares. So make your vehicle as cost centers. Vehicle number as cost center, then your problem is solved. Sinto Matthew from Sauparnika. If same person is taking care of electronic business and sports business, how can you allocate these expenses? Then you need to change the design of your cost center. Say in the example that I have taken is each salesperson is dealing only in particular line of business. But if the salesperson is dealing in multiple lines of business, then you need to change the design of your cost center design itself. Then first you need to make employee as the main cost center and line of business as the sub cost centers. Then it will work. Right? So do you have any other questions? Hope this is clear. Okay, so while I am showing whatever is available on default Tally as a standard capability, okay, we have already done for okay, so let's go back to our presentation and look at what are the things that we dealt. So there is a sub cost center. We discussed on this. We discussed on how to make vouchers with cost center allocation, vouchers with. Then we looked at the reporting. Then we saw how to do the auto allocation along with predefined cost centers. Then how to do the vouchers with predefined cost center allocation. Okay, then we need to look at the reports. So same thing, reporting is the same way, only the allocation differs. For reporting, you need to just go to display, statement of accounts, cost center, and click on cost category. It is showing all the reports. Or if you want particular cost center, you could go to particular cost center and look at the reports. Okay, so is this clear? Any other questions you have? So I think we have come to the end of this training for this. Okay, anyhow, we have cost categories also that we will be discussing in the next session at 4 o'clock. Okay, so those who need the presentation and the sample data, those who need the presentation and the sample data, please send us an email to mahesh@mbmhsi.com, giving all the details like your name, your organization name, your email